Carl.
Join the meeting.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being prompt. As you can see on my screen, if you are participating via your computer or your mobile device, our meeting will begin promptly at 8:05. We will allow other people to join the call and get logged in. In the meantime, while we wait, we will have our musical therapy provided by Kira Mayton from Detroit. Kira, if you could go ahead and minister to us through song while we wait for other people to join the call. Thank you in advance.
Alrighty, thank you again for having me. It's been such a pleasure to sing with you guys each week. So I'm going to be quick and just sing a quick song. I've had some good days, and I've had some hills to climb. I've had some weary days and some lonely nights. But when I look around and I think things over, all of my good days outweighs my bad days. I won't complain. Sometimes the clouds hang low and I can hardly see the road. So I'll ask one question, Lord. Why so much pain? But He knows what's best for me. Even though my weary eyes cannot see. So I'll say, thank you, Lord. I won't complain. He knows what's best for me. God knows what's best for me. He knows what's best for me. So I won't complain. He wiped my tears away. Turn my midnights into day. So I'll say, thank you, Lord. I won't complain. He knows what's best for me. Oh, the Lord knows what's best for me. So I'll say, thank you, Lord. I've been misused, but thank you, Lord. Sometimes abused, but thank you, Lord. Lord, sometimes confused, but thank you, Lord. I won't complain. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you really setting the tone for our meetings each week. It really does a great deal to help us sort of focus and put things into perspective as we look at all of the devastation that is happening in our communities, in our country, and across the world, really. So I think that we will have you for as long as you will come. Thank you for ministering to us. Again, if people are interested in connecting with Kiara for any of your musical needs, I have placed her information here on the screen. She can be here. I don't know if you want to indicate what your Instagram information is.
Yes, it is 2 underscores beauty for ashes is spelled out exactly how it sounds, and then 2 underscores that follow after. It is a private account, so don't be alarmed if you get to it and not sure if it's me.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so it is 8:05, so I will go ahead and get our meeting started, and we will have uh, our anyone else who joins the call will be able to catch up. These meetings are recorded and broadcasted to Facebook on our Facebook account. At this time, I'm going to begin to record the meeting just so that you are aware. Before we get started, I wanted to review a few housekeeping items. Again, please stay muted unless you are speaking or unless we are in the Q&A portion. That way we can eliminate some of the background noise. If you are dialed in and unable to see a mute or unmute button because you're on your phone or you've dialed in from your phone, you can press *6 to unmute yourself. Also, we do have a chat box in Zoom that we will be monitoring as well. If you are participating via Facebook, we will be monitoring those comments as well. We'll post and share any links or phone numbers that are spoken, so you don't have to rush to write them down or to ask for them to be shared. We will post those links and phone numbers that are discussed. And if you do have a question or something to say, please state your name and your affiliation when speaking so that we know who you are and people can connect with you afterwards if they would like. We may or may not be having polls. You do need to be on the Zoom app in order to participate in polls. So if you called in this time, maybe next time join via Zoom, the Zoom app if you're able, but you're not required. We use this to the polls to test the temperature of people that are on the call, see how we're doing, see any needs that we are or aren't addressing, and then also to share any information our guest speakers would like. I mentioned that the meeting is being recorded and broadcasted, and then continue to
Marcia Gardner
stay on the call for as long as you
joined the
can
meeting.
for some important updates and reminders that we typically share. So just a quick overview for the meeting. We'll first begin by giving a brief overview of our organization. Again, we do this every call because we have a little bit different mix each time. So for those of you that join us each and every week, my apologies, but as a new organization, we also are interested and concerned of getting the awareness of our organization out into the community. So you can sort of view yourself as Minority Freedom Community Fund ambassadors at this point. If you've been to all, 10 or so of our meetings, you probably could do this presentation for us, but thank you for your patience. I'll also go over some wellness tips. Typically, we have someone from the health department speak to us, but we've decided that we would do that maybe once a month. And then in the meantime, just have a more truncated version of that presentation that I will do. And then we'll also share some progress updates for our task force. So what are some things that we've been able to do or accomplish or work on or learn since our last call as a task force. And then we'll turn it over to our guest speakers. I'm very excited for today's guest speaker. So we want to make sure we save her presentation for closer to the middle of the meeting, just to make sure that everyone who's interested is able to get on the call and hear her presentation. After we have our guest speaker, we will then open the floor up to any questions, any concerns, any updates, any news, any frustrations you have to share. This is your space. This is a safe space. We expect raw conversation. We will not block you or filter you in any way. Obviously, we ask that you do not be disrespectful to anyone on the call, but we understand that every situation that is going on among our community is not pretty, and so the language used to describe it won't necessarily be pretty. So please note that there are minors on the call. So we just ask you use some discretion there, but definitely use that Q&A If you want if you already have your questions or comments or information prepared, that's great. But if you don't, just use some of the information that you're going to be learning on this call or hearing on this call to maybe inform or to motivate some questions or thoughts that you have. But we really, really, really want to hear from you. So that's the overview for our meeting. Just to give a little bit of information about Minority Freedom Community Fund. We are an organization that started in 2019 with the mission to improve the lives of minorities through economic support, social programs, and holistic wellness. Our ultimate vision is to create a world where minorities are able to sustainably live full and healthy lives. We are headquartered in Michigan, but our programs and our volunteers and our leadership are placed throughout the country. We're a 100% volunteer run organization. So all of our staff are volunteers, our board members are volunteers, and we have committed very early on to donate 98% or to allocate 98% of our donations to direct aid. So that is a little bit about us, a little bit about our people. You see, we have our board members, our youth advisors, and our volunteers. What I will note and continue to note is that we have representation heavy in Michigan, but still representation in other states in the country, including Virginia, Georgia, California, Florida, and New York. And we are actively engaging people outside of Michigan to get connected with our organization. We don't want to be biased just because the founder is from Michigan and many of our founding board members are from Michigan. We're here to support minorities across the country. And so we want representation from minorities in other states so that they can tell us what's going on in their communities, and we can be positioned to support those communities with that information. A little bit about the COVID-19 task force. We launched the task force at our March board meeting this year, which was just our second board meeting as a newly founded organization. Our focus for the task force was to mitigate disproportionate disparity among minorities through connecting minorities to financial and informational resources, advocating based off of the community members' experiences that we're hearing either on these calls or through the applications that we receive for emergency aid. We also are very concerned about sharing facts about the disease, about related news and legislation that is centered around COVID-19 relief. And so our primary purpose of this call, again, is really to allow you all an opportunity to voice your concerns, to share your experiences so that we can have more community informed strategies and advocacy efforts when we're out in the community, when we're on calls with legislators and coalitions and in different groups. We're able to give real and raw information and detail about what's going on the ground. So it's very, very, I cannot emphasize this enough. I know we have amazing guest speakers each week, but I really, really, really want to emphasize that this is your call. We really want to hear from you. Just to sort of highlight that we did come up with a couple of new initiatives as a result of what we were seeing with the task force comments and some of the feedback that we were receiving on these calls. So we ended up launching the Minority Community Response Emergency Aid Fund and our 100 Wishes Granted campaign. The Minority Community Response Aid Fund really was designed to help ease hardships that have been exacerbated among minority communities by the pandemic. And so there's two core elements of that. One is to connect minorities that are experiencing these hardships to resources, as well as connecting them to financial aid. We are proud to say that 100% of the people that apply to that emergency aid fund, we try to connect them to some resource that relates to their needs. While we're not able to grant 100% of the requests that we're receiving for various reasons, we are very much so concerned that we don't just send people away with a no and nothing more. And so we try to, at least at the bare minimum, connect them to resources in their area that might be able to assist them. Our only eligibility criteria is that they're a minority, they identify as a minority, and they're a U.S. citizen experiencing hardship. So a lot of programs you might see have a lot of barriers, and we are very much so concerned with eliminating unnecessary barriers where possible. And so we continue to preserve minimum eligibility requirements intentionally.
Join the meeting.
And again, our responses that we've received on those applications really help inform our programs and how we show up and how we advocate on behalf of the community. For example, the types of guest speakers that we have, the 100 Wishes Granted campaign that I'll talk about later, as well as different modifications to our emergency aid, whether it's the application, the amounts, just being as responsive as possible. We invite and encourage you all to continue to share resources with us. I know a lot of you have my personal number or email, and I just want to reiterate and stress that the best way to share resources to us at this time is via email to our covid@mifreedomcf.org account, or sharing it on our social media pages, either LinkedIn or Facebook, whatever you're comfortable with. We have Instagram, we have Twitter as well. So share those resources through that you see, whether it's a picture, a link, a report, an event, whatever it is that you're seeing. It doesn't have to be pretty or formatted a certain way. You could even send, type something up in your notes and send it if you want to that email address to us. Also, we're really, really stressing that if you or someone you know are in need, please contact us to request emergency aid. You can contact us via phone by calling us at 810-377-5165. That is our phone number. I will share a link that you can use as well later on to access the emergency aid application directly. But if you text or call that number and request the link to the application, one of our volunteers will provide that for you. You can also volunteer with us by emailing volunteer@mifreedomcf.org. You can subscribe to text alerts if you would like to get more immediate alerts about our task force calls or different things going on. You can text the word MIFreedom to 31996 to receive those text alerts. And you can also donate to our emergency aid fund by texting the word COVID fund to the number 44321. And you can either donate or fundraise on that platform. I usually reserve this portion for the end, but I really want to stress, if you or someone in your household has not already completed the census, please do so. It is so imperative that we are accurately counted. That census informs, it's for the decade, right? So it will inform how federal dollars are allocated in our communities. I know there is a lot of mistrust with the federal government and the census, and some people might be avoiding it for various reasons, but all else aside, it is important to do. If you have questions or concerns about it, please share those with us, but you can complete your census by going to my2020census.gov. If you don't have access to internet or to a device that can get to the internet, you can call 844-330-2020, and that will allow you to speak to someone in different languages as well to complete your census. So if you aren't a native English speaker, which if you're on this call, I'm assuming you are because I speak English, so you would be very confused right now. We also have a guest speaker tonight that is from Run for Something. I'm going to let her do the honors of describing what Run for Something is, but I just wanted to indicate this as a way to get involved at the state and local level to influence change in your community. Again, continue to spread the word. We'll be here at the same time, same place every week. I get a lot of calls. Is the call today? What time is it? It's every single Wednesday at 8 o'clock, rain or shine, same Zoom link, same phone number, same meeting ID, every single Wednesday at 8 o'clock. Particularly if you're a Michigan citizen, please, there are two important things going on. One relates to our Redistricting Commission, and I spelled that word wrong, but it's okay. You can apply for that by going to redistrictingmichigan.org. Also, the Task Force on Racial Disparity that I talked about in prior meetings does have a website. I have the URL here. I'll make sure that someone or myself posts that URL into the chat box for you. And so I have a separate presentation just for the comments that I had for today. But at this time, I want to pause for a moment just to see if there are any board members or committee members on the call that would like to introduce themselves to our participants today.
Hi, this is Nakia Powell Thomas, and I am the President and Executive Director of the Minority Freedom Community Fund. I just wanted to welcome everyone to our call today, and we appreciate your time. And please feel comfortable enough to jump in and share any thoughts that you might have. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Dana Peoples, the Assistant Treasurer for the Minority Community Freedom Fund. I'm an educator from the city of Detroit, and I'm very glad to be on the call tonight. I can't wait to hear all of the information that we will share to help rid our communities of the disparity that's going on right now. Thank you for joining our call.
Thank you. Hi, Dana.
Hi.
Other board members, I see you on the call, so I know you're here.
Good evening. My name is Tarsha Gale. I am a board member and I am a child welfare administrator. I work in Wayne County, and I am just wanting to say welcome to everyone and thank you for joining the call. And I'm looking forward to the information and the speaker that we have this evening.
Thank you. Hi, Tarsha.
Hi, this is Yakima Brookins. I am the treasurer for the fund. And as evidenced by my last name, I am also the mother of its founder. Welcome everyone to this evening's call. And I'm sure we'll get a lot of information. These calls have been very informative over the past several months. And I hope they continue to be helpful to the community at large. Thank you.
Hi, Mama.
Hi, baby.
Are there any other board members or committee members on the call that would like to introduce themselves before we continue?
Hi, this is Kayla Thomas, the chair of the Youth Advisory Committee. I just want to thank you all for being on the call today.
Hi, Kayla.
Hi.
All right, so I have resumed sharing my screen at this point, and we'll go ahead and get started with the second portion of our call, which is our wellness tips. So again, typically we have an official from the Detroit Health Department come and give us a presentation. We'll be doing that probably at our next call. So for today, I will do my snippet of just a couple of tips. Again, thinking of the whole person, so thinking of your whole person and not just one element. We want to make sure that you're being thoughtful and considerate of your mind, your body, and your spirit. So we want to make sure that you're stimulating your mind. You're either learning a new skill or a new craft. There are so many places to go, free resources to learn how to do something maybe that you've always wanted to do. So I just encourage you to keep yourself stimulated. If you're working, if you're not able to work right now or waiting to work again, do things to keep yourself stimulated. Also, just being kind to yourself and others, being patient. This is something that I personally have to tell myself every day, and my mother and my best friend are on the call and they can confirm this. Practicing grace is so important right now. It's so easy to get frustrated because things aren't going the way that we expect them to go, or they normally go, or they should go. And just to remember in all your interactions, whether it's with another person, a company, or whatever, try to be kind to yourself. So allow yourself to make mistakes and forgive yourself, but also exercise that same courtesy to others. Also, I would recommend just disconnecting from media outlets, maybe for a day, a portion of the day. Obviously not for extended periods of time, because you do want to stay connected and understand what's going on in the world around you, but sensory overload and news overload can be stressful. So just try to make sure that you dedicate maybe a day or at least a portion of a day where you don't access social media or watch the news, and you do other things to really disconnect yourself from all the news around COVID-19 that's infiltrated all aspects of our life at this point. We also want to be kind to our body. What I'll just simply say here is that you want to consume immune boosting food and drink. So a lot of times I go into detail about what that is and what to avoid. There's a lot of there are a lot of people that have different opinions about what is healthy and what's not, and I'm not here to sway you, but I will just say be mindful of what you're consuming, and you want to really focus in and hone in on those foods that are good for immune boosting. We do have resources to share. If you do not know what foods are good for your immune system, we'll be happy to share resources to where you can find more information, recipes, and vitamins and different things that can be helpful for your body. Also, just making sure that your spiritual self is taken care of. So whether you meditate, pray, just finding quiet time for yourself to connect. And another way to give your spirit what it needs is to give. So whether you're donating your time, your resources, your talents to Minority Freedom Community Fund or other organizations out here on the ground trying to improve the condition of people, we just encourage you to have a giving spirit and to give when you are able. The next few slides really get into detail around how to stay safe with COVID-19 spreading through our communities. Although we have seen decreases in the spread, it is not gone. And we also know that the way that this disease works, it can live, you can be asymptomatic for days and weeks. And so we want to make sure that we're continuing to wash our hands for a minimum of 20 seconds with soap and water or hand sanitizer that has at least 60% alcohol. You want to continue to exercise proper sneeze etiquette. You want to avoid touching your eyes, your nose, your face unless you just washed your hands. A lot of times people say don't wear gloves at this point because you sort of feel like, oh, I have on gloves, I can touch anything now, and you forget to still exercise that proper etiquette. And so I just want to emphasize that you can wear gloves and masks, but just know that that does not equate to immunity. So continue to exercise proper glove and mask etiquette. If you have a mask on, leave it on. Don't touch it a lot. If you have gloves on, that doesn't mean that you get to touch everything. Still be mindful of what you're touching and take them off before you enter your house or before you touch other things in your house. You want to still clean and disinfect frequently touched surfaces. You can use your discretion on whether you stay out or stay at home or go out, but be mindful to pay attention to any active executive orders that are applicable to your state that your governor has imposed. So again, if you're out and about, you're exercising, you're with your family, your friends, your coworkers, whatever, you still want to maintain 6 feet and wear a glove, wear masks. A lot of people on the call have children and some are children. And so I just wanted to share this update from the Detroit Health Department. They're reporting that as of May 12th, they have seen 17 cases, and I'm sure that these numbers have adjusted exponentially because this data is about a week or 2 old. And so they're seeing more cases of young people ages 3 to 17 presenting what is called pediatric multi-system inflammatory syndrome. And so these symptoms look like fevers that persist for 3 days or longer, gastrointestinal issues such as vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal pain, having rashes, red bumpy tongues, which they call strawberry tongue in the medical field. There is a similarity to a disease called Kawasaki disease that includes symptoms like bloodshot eyes, cracked lips, swollen glands, red palms of hands and soles of feet. This is occurring among children that have been healthy and do not have pre-existing medical conditions, and shows up weeks after being exposed to coronavirus. So that is the information that I wanted to share with you. If you have questions about this, we can discuss this in the Q&A portion. Just a quick update on some of our progress since our last call. Again, with our Minority Community Response Emergency Aid Fund, we want to encourage you and anyone that you may know to apply for assistance. That fund is available and we do have capacity to provide aid, whether it be financial support directly or if it is just a referral to another organization. Again, we are a national organization, so you do not have to be from Michigan or in the Detroit area to apply for assistance through this program. Also, just wanted to touch a little bit more on our 100 Wishes Granted campaign. Through our Emergency Assistance Fund, we have learned that our families across the country are in urgent need of household supplies and personal items that reach beyond the typical toilet paper and face masks that people donate to charity. And so to address this, we've launched this campaign. We will ultimately invite 100 families across the country to create Amazon wish lists with up to 20 household and personal necessities of their choice, emphasis there. And as wish lists are created, we'll reach out to our donor participants who've registered to invite them to purchase items off of the wish list or to sponsor a completed wish list in its entirety. So we are inviting, right now we're in the soft launch phase of this program. And so we're asking that those that are able and interested to pledge as donors to do so. You can do so by going to bit.ly/grant-a-wish to access the registration form. Lastly, I will say that our president and executive director, Nakia Powell-Thomas, and I spoke with an organization called Detroit Heals Detroit. I'm not sure if they are on the call today, but they will be on the call in future meetings. We really are proud of the work that they're doing. They are a youth-led organization focused on using trauma-informed practices to heal Detroit youth. And so as an organization committed to improving the lives of minorities, we're so laser focused on ensuring that all of our partnerships align with our vision, that when we came across Detroit Heals Detroit, we really got excited. We want to support them and really uplift their model so that they can be an example of how to be a community-centric or youth-led organization for other organizations. So we have started a fundraiser to support their fundraiser. You can help us with this fundraiser for Detroit Heals Detroit by going to bit.ly/MFCF Detroit Heals to donate or to create your own version of the fundraiser to share among your networks. At this time, I would like to invite anyone else within the organization that has any updates to share with the community. Again, if you are on the phone, you can press *6 and you should be able to unmute yourself if you are on the Zoom app. All right. right, going once, going twice. If there are no other updates, at this time, I'm going to pause sharing my screen, and I am going to turn it over to Candace Harris of Run for Something to talk to us about Run for Something and how we can get involved at the state and local level to influence change. I'll share a few comments after Candace gives her presentation around why we think this is a fitting conversation to have with the community and why right now is so critical for us to have this conversation. But I don't want to hold Candace up with more of my speeches. So Candace, I see that you're on. If you can unmute yourself, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me tonight. Again, my name is Candace Harris. I'm the Midwestern Regional Director for Run for Something. And tonight I wanted to talk to you all about why it is so important in this moment to be thinking about running for office, to be talking to leaders that we know, people within our networks, about running for office. And I'm also going to share some COVID related resources that our organization has put together that can be used for continuing community organizing, fundraising. And it's a lot of it's very campaign specific, but some of the general resources are good that different types of organizations outside of campaigns can use. So I just wanted to introduce who Run for Something is. So we're a political action committee. We work with young progressive candidates who are running for office for the first or second time. And the reason we want to encourage people who are running for the first or second time is that there's a lot of impediments to people thinking that, you know, can I run for office? Can I step up and be that leader that I know I need to see in my community? And part of why we exist is we want to strip away those impediments. So we only work with candidates running for local offices. So those are candidates that sometimes they call those down ballot candidates. And the reason we call them that is because the top of your ballot this November will have president, and you'll have to go all the way down the ballot to vote for those folks who are running for school board, state house, state senate, county commissioner. So those are the kind of candidates that we work with. And I also wanted to point that out because so often, sometimes folks, especially during presidential years, they're concerned with the president, with the senator. But those local candidates are so important because they really do impact our daily life and work. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So I wanted to point that out. Please, if you know, when you're talking to people, talking to them about voting, make sure they are voting down the ballot because the judges are usually at the end of the ballot, which is crazy. So we also work with those types of people. We particularly work with candidates under 40, but our resources on the website that was shared earlier, and I'll also drop it in the chat box, are open to anyone. And to date, we have helped over 45,000 people start thinking about potentially running for local office. We have a volunteer base that we are now placing those volunteers in campaigns virtually. To help candidates that we're supporting get out the vote. We've endorsed over 1,000 candidates in all 50 states. And we're really there to just offer strategic coaching support and help people start and finish their campaigns strong. So the reason why I'm here particularly tonight, and I also, I wanted to start with something that was mentioned earlier on the call, which is redistricting. I work in all the Midwestern states. I'm based in Chicago, but there was a link that was shared earlier about how to apply for your redistricting commission. I am doing a lot of work in Michigan around the state legislature because redistricting is so important. It's important when it comes to the census, but it's also important when it comes to making sure that we're electing local leaders who will redraw those districts to properly take into account representation of all of our communities. You all probably have heard of gerrymandering and that particularly affects Black communities, because a lot of times if we're not properly counted in the census and if we're not properly represented at the state level, then we might get drawn into districts that don't allow us to be able to elect the proper representation for us. So part of the work that I'm doing in Michigan, and part of the reason why I'm going so hard, not only in Michigan, but all the Midwestern states, to make sure that we're supporting great local candidates, is because redistricting is going to be so important going into 2021. So I'm interested, I'm also, part of my job is recruiting and supporting candidates. And I'm interested in not only just running and supporting progressive candidates, but really candidates who are going to step up and make a difference in our communities. As I mentioned before, state and local elected officials have the most direct and imminent impact on our daily lives and work, daily lives. School boards, those people who we elect to our school board, they fund and operate our schools. Water boards, they either ensure or don't ensure that we have access to clean water. Our state legislatures, they make up our criminal justice statutes, and they also make sure that we are getting access to public health benefits. They're the ones who are going to consult with the federal government and make sure that we're getting Medicaid aid and all those other things that trickle down into our communities and create the safe environments that we hope to live in. And I'm just going to speak very frankly, because we are all on this call because we know the devastating effects that COVID-19 has had in our community. Long-standing and ever-present structural racism and inherently unequal opportunities have caused our community to suffer more than others. I mentioned I'm based in Chicago, and I am seeing directly what local leadership can do or won't do to protect our community. And so part of the reason I'm on this call is because I just want people to know that even though we're in a moment of collective crisis and trauma, that this is still the opportunity to step up and be a leader and to think about running for office. So some of the resources that we have on Run for Something, we have a whole website set up. It's resourcesforcandidates.com. I'm going to drop it on the chat. And I think I can screen share. Can I screen share? I was just going to pull up the website real quick. Is that okay?
You should be able to.
Sure. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share, but and just point out some of the direct stuff that we have on here. So just pulling that up right now. Okay, perfect. So this is the homepage on our website. It's all about candidate support for COVID-19. We have a really cool crowdsourced idea. And like I said, all of this is very campaign specific, but for instance, this table has ideas that people have submitted about how to talk to people in your community. We know right now it's not safe to be doing face-to-face contact with folks. We don't want to be gathering in spaces where we're in close contact and we can't socially distance. So we've had to share ideas, and we've and also Run for Something that's put together resources that help people help you be able to talk to folks in your community. So we have some general resources, and I'm clicking on that right now, that we ultimately want this to be a hub for if you are thinking about running a campaign, if you're thinking about running in 2021, because we really don't know how long it's going to take for us to really get back to normal. So a lot of this stuff is still going to be things that you'll want to be thinking about. If you're thinking about running next year, if you know somebody's running next year, this is a great hub to just get, we have everything from CDC data on COVID-19 to an article about how to talk to folks, how to talk to people about how they should be voting, how to encourage people to vote from home. where you can find those resources. These are all things that people should know. And even if you're not running for office, they're conversations we want to start having in our community. And the second thing I'll point out is that we have a policy and legislative support page that that has some links to some websites that are tracking state legislatures and the different bills that are going through, because, you know, our state legislatures are still meeting. They're, you know, still creating policy. This is still an opportunity for us to be able to advocate as a community and really stay up to date with what's going on. And this is important, whether you're thinking about running for office or you just need to get these this information out to the community. So it's all here. It's on our website. It's open to everyone, whether you're running for office or not. So I definitely wanted to point that out. And then just in closing, I just wanted to talk about just like some general stuff, because I think sometimes people think that running for office is really complicated and that you have to have all these things in place. Like I said, we try to take the impediments out for that, because I personally want to see people who are from my community, who are doing the work, be the ones who step up and are making the policies for my community. I think those are the folks that are best fit, but sometimes we see things like money or notoriety or just folks just not being able to know like what it takes to get started. We make that very easy for you. So we actually have a website that's called runforwhat.net. I'll also drop that in the chat. This is a portal for where you can go when you're just thinking about running for office. You might not even know what you want to run for. It tells you about filing requirements. So right now, I mean, I'm speaking very Michigan specific. I feel like the majority of us are in Michigan, but for 2020, we're now the filing deadline has passed for Michigan. So now we're looking at 2021, and it is not too early to start thinking about if you wanted to run for a local board. So on this website, you can see what those offices are that are going to be up for election for 2021. In 2020, there's over 150,000 elected state and local elected offices up for office. So that really shows the impact and also the need, because you wouldn't believe how many of those offices don't have people running for them or don't have people from both parties running for them. So there's really not an opportunity for all of folks from the community to have their voices represented at the ballot. So runforwhat.net is a great place where you can start. Also just like I said, running for office isn't as complicated as we think. I like to just sum it up into 3 things. You're going to be just building lists. When you get ready to think about running for office, and we also have lots of training for this on our website, you're essentially just building some lists. You're building a list of donors. And I have to put this out there. You cannot run a campaign without thinking about having a donation base to support you. And that's for any level of campaign. And we actually have some really great trainings of how to think about creating a donor base, especially during COVID-19, because fundraising is very difficult now because our communities are being affected and people are looking at how they donate their money. But at the same time, that shouldn't necessarily be an impediment for you to stop running, for you to think, well, I don't have my own money or I can't put in my own money. We will help you figure out how to fundraise, because we've all fundraised in a sense, and political fundraising is no different. You shouldn't think about this as you're asking money for yourself. You're asking for people to invest in you and invest in a belief that you are going to, when you're elected, they're investing in a vision for a better community, and you're going to be part of that vision. So when you have that mindset, it's not as hard to think about you're building that list. You're going to build a list of volunteers. And those are people who are going to be from your network that you're going to ask for their time. They're going to be people who are going to call voters for you. They're going to organize virtual events for you. You're gonna have to get used to asking people to help you with things. That's also part of being a good elected official, because it's impossible to do this by yourself. So you're gonna build that list of volunteers, and you're going to ask people to help support you for your campaign. And the final list that you'll build when you're thinking about running for office is a list of voters. And Run for Something will help you find out how to get that access to the voter file. Every state does it a little bit differently, but you are able to get you're able to get free access to the voter file technically, but there's also some really great software that we can connect to and help you figure out how to get access to your voter file to be able to call the people in your community and ask them to vote for you. So I really like to sum running for office up into those simple points, because I never want people to feel like they're not able to run for office because they don't have those basic resources. It's definitely stressful and it can be isolating, but organizations like Run for Something are here to help. My job is to help my candidates feel supported every step of the way. And we have had a lot of success in doing that. And I really hope that from this call that people will feel inspired, or even if they're thinking about it, if you know somebody who's thinking about running for office, or if you know somebody who needs to be thinking about it, please share our website. We have calls every week where we go through all these initial things that folks should be thinking about, and we take questions. So that's all I have today. Thank you all so much for having me again. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take those, but I'll also drop those links that I mentioned in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Candace. That was really helpful. If anyone has any questions for Candace, I know she gave us a lot of great information, but while she was speaking, or if you just have any questions about Run for Something, or you have questions about how to figure out what you should run for, whatever your questions might be, I invite you all to ask those at this time. Again, I'm going to unmute everyone that is on Zoom. So if you are on Zoom on your phone or your computer, you can mute yourself back if you don't have anything to say. But just to make sure that there's no technical difficulties keeping people from asking questions, I'm going to go ahead and unmute at this time.
I have a question. This is Dana from the Minority Freedom Community Fund. I wanted to know what, from your experience, has been the biggest boundary or obstacle, I guess, for someone who decides to run for office. Thank you for that question. So I'll point out two. We work specifically with young candidates, and I really do think that age is a barrier sometimes, especially when people are just getting established with their careers. Folks feel like it's also a level in our community of folks not feeling like they're qualified to run. And that's definitely something I try to debunk, because I think that I've seen some wonderful candidates that have been younger than me even, and I'm 31. I've seen some great candidates that are younger than me that have really great views, like what our younger generations are going to. I think those views are definitely ones that we want to see, especially when I look at school board races. So age is one. Also money. I think a lot of people see, especially when if they're running against an incumbent, or they're running against, like if they're a Democrat running against a well-known Republican or vice versa, they're like, I don't have the money to be able to do this because I know this costs a lot of money. But money shouldn't be an impediment, because there are so many resources, there are so many organizations that are, especially since 2016, that have popped up that help candidates, especially when we're putting in the work. We can help put people in contact with those. And also we are starting to directly fund candidates states as well. Right now, we're just working in Texas and Pennsylvania because of campaign finance laws. So we hope to be reaching out to more states to directly help our candidates be able to run. But like, I'd say those were the top two.
Okay, thank you. I do have one additional question. Not necessarily asking for myself, but let's say someone has a criminal record or something that, you know, they feel will tarnish their chances at being able to run for office. Is that a hindrance, or is that something that, you know, can be, I don't want to say overlooked, but not hinder them from running for office?
I'm saying I'm dying.
I'll say that's a really good question. I definitely don't think anything like that should be a hindrance. There have, especially because the experience of folks who have been through our criminal justice system and a lot of times have experienced injustices in that whole process is invaluable to elected office. But when you're running for office, yes, people do try to find everything against you. People are going to vet you. People are going to Google you and maybe see a mugshot. Like, I'm not going to play down that those things happen. But at the same time, it's about building organization around you as well. I used to work for an organization called the Worker Center for Racial Justice. We're based in Chicago, but we do Black voter outreach throughout the Midwest. And we were actually founded by formerly incarcerated Black workers in Chicago who were just sick and tired of not having employment opportunities. And honestly, one of the things that I did at my job is to organize and work with my members to help them run for office, because those are the kind of people that we need to see. They're the direct things that they're experiencing in their communities. We don't see enough representation in public office. And as long as you're able to connect with your community, connect with folks who have those shared experiences, people would be amazed by how much support you can get, especially in just telling your story, because that is part of being a candidate, pulling that back into your message. So it's something that you'll have to like address, because it's what people try to use against you in a negative light. But I also think it can be very empowering, because there are a lot of organizations, and there quite frankly are a lot of folks who are ready to see people who have actually lived the experiences they've experienced in public office representing them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Candace at this time? Again, if you're on the phone, you can press *6 to unmute yourself, or you can unmute yourself if you joined in through the Zoom app. Okay. Thank you so much, Candace. That was so informative. I definitely was inspired. The calls that you have every week just to talk about how Run for Something works are so important or so helpful. And for me personally, was very helpful. So much so that I wanted you to come talk to us today, because I felt that if other people had this information and could see the steps that could lead them to run or be appointed to office, and make it more real, that we could really do some change in our communities. And so thank you again. If anyone has additional questions, you can contact Candace. You can reach out to me and I can share her contact information. I'm sure she's going to drop it into the chat box as well. Again, if you're interested in running for something or figuring out what to run for, you can go to runforwhat.com and enter your information. Or actually go to runforwhat.net and enter your you're welcome, and enter your information to see what offices are available. And if you, again, don't really know what office to run for, even if you see what's available, there are tons of resources that Run for Something has to help you decipher that. And Candace can be reached at Candace, K-A-N as in Nancy, Dice, D-I-C-E, at runforsomething.net. So that is her contact information. It is in the chat if you're on Zoom, but if you're called in or you're on Facebook, you can contact Candace via email at that address. At this time, I would like to turn it over to our callers, our participants, our community, to invite you all to ask any questions you have, whether it's something that we discussed today or on a prior call, whether it's something that has happened in your community that you just want to vent about, or some good news that you might have to share. We really want to hear from you. Again, we really use the information that you're sharing on these calls to inform how we advocate for our communities. And so any insight, whether it's good or bad, it can be helpful in our efforts for that. So again, I'm going to invite you all to unmute yourself if you have any questions, comments, feedback that you would like to share at this time. You do not have to state your name if you would prefer to remain anonymous and you've called in. But I just invite everyone to speak freely and plainly at this time. While you are finding the courage to ask your question or to speak, there are a couple of emails that came into our COVID at MI Freedom CF email account that I do want to address. We all know, everyone that's on this call, I'm sure by now knows of the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis that took place this week, and there is a lot of outrage and outcry, and rightfully so. You know, it just seems like every other day there's something. And so what I wanted to do at this time is just share some information that we received from an organization called Color of Change that we really refer to for our advocacy efforts. They often have petitions for us to sign. They have they provide us with the information that we should use when communicating with our legislative officials on behalf of the concerns that we have right now in relation to what happened with Mr. Floyd. They are calling for the community to demand that the mayor in Minneapolis act. And so the mayor is Mayor Jacob Frey. And the request is that they continue to take further action to get justice for George Floyd by A, blocking the police officers involved from receiving their pensions, B, by banning the officers from ever becoming police officers again, and requiring the district attorney to immediately charge the officers with murder. And so there's a campaign right now where you can take action. I will drop a link to that in a moment in the chat box. It's kind of hard to multitask, but I just want to encourage us all to not feel overwhelmed and feel hopeless and helpless. We can do something about it, whether you're running for office or whether you're just being a voice in community advocacy and signing petitions and reaching out to your legislators. There is something that you can do, so you should never feel as though it's above you. This is our calling. As long as this continues to happen, it will continue to be something that we should be charged with. And so I just want to offer that as a resource for those of you that want to do something and act on the injustice that is happening in our community. Related to that, there is another petition pertaining to Breonna Taylor, who was also murdered not too long ago in her apartment while she was asleep. There's a petition right now going to demand that those officers be fired, arrested, and charged. Unlike the case with Mr. Floyd, those officers have not been charged or arrested or fired. And so we really want to make sure that we're supporting all the efforts that exist that pertain to any of the injustices and unlawful deaths and murders of our people. Lastly, I will state that the Unemployment Insurance Agency, and this is unrelated to both of those items that I just discussed, but the Unemployment Insurance Agency is issuing a notice to everyone in regards to fraudulent unemployment claims. So there's been a rise in unlawful unemployment claims across the nation, and people have been stealing identities, particularly around people that are eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance and don't know it. So whether you're self-employed or an independent contractor, those identities have been being used to obtain benefits. And so they've seen this rise in activity both in Michigan, as well as in Washington, North Carolina, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Oklahoma, Wyoming, and Florida. If you receive mail from the Unemployment Insurance Agency that has someone else's name on it that you do not know, that could very well be an indication that your identity it has been compromised, and someone may be trying to either use your address or your information to file for unemployment insurance. So I just want you to continue to be vigilant if you have questions about that, and if you are unsure about a notice that you received, or you get any calls that you're not sure how to respond to. Again, we are a resource for you, so continue to reach out to us in whatever format or method that is comfortable to you, whether it's social media, text, phone call, or email, and we'll be happy to assist you or direct you to someone that can. I spoke for a minute, so I'm going to again invite anyone that is on the call. If you have anything that you would like to share, any questions at this time that we could answer for you, or any ideas on how you would like us to advocate on your behalf, please do so. Okay, I will take your silence as that there are no other questions or comments at this time. So with that, I would like to turn over to the last portion of our meeting, which is exciting and new, and this is the first time that we are going to be doing this. We will have our community raffle at this time. So we will randomly select someone that is still on the call right now, that is not affiliated with our organization. Our president will message you privately to let you know that you have won our raffle. Again, if you are not a part of the Minority Freedom Community Funds board or volunteer staff or any of our committees officially, then you are eligible, and you will receive a chat in a couple seconds, if you haven't already, from our president and executive director, letting you know that you are the winner for tonight. Again, I encourage you all to join us as often as you can, each and every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock via this Zoom link. Invite as many people as you can. Be sure to go to our Facebook page and get engaged with our recordings that way if you missed a piece or if you want to remember. I do have an alert of who the winner is. And so it is someone that is called in. So I will contact you separately as soon as this call is over to let you know that you won. If there are no other questions, again, thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.